Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I am Julia, the Gringa living in Chile. If you don't know me already, that's exactly what I am. The Gringa that's living in Chile. I have been living here for 1 year now, and I often get a lot of questions about what my life was like in the US, what it's like now, and what is different between the two countries. I love sharing my experience and I love talking about these things with you. So if that's something you're interested in, hit that subscribe button down below and follow me for more. You won't be disappointed. Now, I get asked all the time in my comment section to talk about US schools and to talk about the comparisons between the US and Chile, how they're different and what it's like and everything like that. Now, I get a lot of questions specifically asking me about movies in the US and how they represent the schools in the US. Is that accurate or is it a little bit dramatized? Let's talk about it.
Okay, let's go.
So today, I'm going to break it all down for you. What are schools like in the United States? How do they compare to Chilean schools? And what part of the movies is actually real and what is completely fake? So let's start by talking about how schools are actually run in the United States. So most schools will start in the morning at about 7 or 8 in the morning. Depends on the school. Almost every school that I know of ends their day at 3 p.m. Now, the way the schools are divided in the United States is very interesting. Of course, we have our preschool, or what we would call here in Chile, jardín. That is completely separate from the big kids. They have their own schools. The next level of education in the US is kindergarten through 5th grade. That would be ages 5 to 10 years old, and these kids are what we call elementary school age. So again, this is your kindergarten to 5th grade to your 10-year-olds. The next division of schools is called middle school. These are your 6th to 8th grade students. That would mean they are ages 11 to 14. And then lastly, we have our high school division. These are your 15 to 18-year-old students, and of course after that they go off to college and do their own thing, or they just go work a job, whichever they prefer. So in that respect, comparing Chile to the United States with how we divide our groups of students in the schools is extremely different. I know here in Chile, most schools will keep their kindergartners to their 18-year-olds all in the same building. In the US, that's very unheard of. That does not exist, really. Not that I know of. I have never seen a school that has every age of students all together in one building. So let's talk about how lunch and recess work. So I'm sure you've seen in the movies, our kids in the US do have recess, and I believe we do here in Chile as well. But yes, mostly all of our elementary age students, so up until 5th grade, they are going to be outside for recess at least 1 to 2 hours a day. Now, the food situation is very different as well. In the US, we do have cafeterias in every school. So every school does cook food that you can eat there, but you do usually have to pay for it. Now, I know here in Chile, it really depends on the school. Some of them do have a cafeteria where you can go and do that traditional thing and buy your food. Some of them do not, and you have to bring your own food. But in the US, again, every school has a cafeteria, except for maybe some preschools or kindergartens. Maybe they don't, but most of them do. Okay, now another topic is school uniforms. Now, in the United States, we do have some schools that use uniforms, but usually those are the very prestigious, very fancy private schools. Now, here in Chile, pretty much every school that I have seen has some sort of uniform, and it's usually very strict and formal. In the United States, it's definitely not. We do have dress codes, which are rules about what clothes you can wear, but again, they are much more relaxed than what the Chilean rules are. Like, I know here in Chile, some schools will not allow you to have hair dye or jewelry or things like that. But in the US, yeah, it's very normal that kids will come to school with blue hair or pink hair, or we definitely have earrings in all the time, or necklaces or whatever. So we are allowed to wear those things to school. Mainly our dress code consists of things like no crop tops. Your t-shirts usually have to at least cover 2 fingers on the shoulders. Some shorts and skirts have to be a certain length, but for the most part, it's like very general things that you just can't be showing too much skin, but it's not exactly like a white polo shirt and a skirt type of uniform. The school busing system is also super unique for me. It's actually very shocking for me when I see young kids getting onto a public transport bus to go to school here in Chile. I think it's really cool. I think it's very interesting. But yes, in the US, we do use those big yellow school buses that you see in the movies. They are very real and they are very regulated by the government. There are a lot of laws and rules and regulations that follow those buses. And so, yeah, they're very secure, very safe, but very different. Now, the next big difference is religion in schools. Now, here in Chile, pretty much every school I know of has some sort of foundation in Catholic or belief in Christ or anything like that. But in the US, it's very not like that. This is a very controversial topic for many parents in the United States, and many of them opt to not have religion taught in schools. So there is no talk about the Bible or anything like that within our schools in the US. Now, there is an exception to this, and that is if you pay for your child to go to a religious private school. This would also be the schools where they would wear a uniform, but again, this is not the norm, and almost all schools will avoid any conversation or education about religion. Now, academically speaking, I believe Chile is actually a little bit more strict about their education than the US is. The US is very laid back, and they're trying some more modern learning styles in the US, but Chile is very old-fashioned, very structured. You sit down at a desk and you learn, and that's it, and you have your assignments, and it's very test heavy here in Chile. I don't think that's necessarily a good or bad thing, and I don't think the way the US does it is a good or bad thing. I think it's just different, you know? Now, extracurriculars in the US schools, these are a huge part of student life, and you will see this represented in a lot of movies. We do have football teams and cheerleaders and debate club and robotics and math teams and everything under the sun. There is normally something for every student and every interest that you can do as an extracurricular outside of school. These are activities that you can optionally join. They're very encouraged, but it's a very optional thing. And usually it focuses on talents such as sports or mathematics or science or debate or things like that. But there are so many opportunities, and this is a huge part of student life in the US. Yeah, a lot of students participate in this, and normally when a student participates in something like this, like debate club or a sport or something, it's like their whole identity. Like they are known for it. That's who they are that person. So it's a very big deal. Now, I know this is like an option here in Chile, but I don't think it's like as heavily encouraged or as funded maybe here in Chile as it is in the US. Now, I spoke about this a little bit earlier on in this video, but the teachers here in Chile compared to the teachers in the United States are very different. I think it's just a cultural thing, but with teachers here in Chile, it's very formal, very respectful, and not very personal. In the United States, it's actually very opposite. A lot of teachers and students will have jokes together. They'll make jokes in the hallway as they're passing each other. They'll see each other at lunch. Like, it's much more personal. Now, there is still a boundary there, obviously, of like professionalism, but it is not as strict as it is here in Chile. Okay, and the part you all have been waiting for. Let's talk about how movies represent the US schools and how they actually are. So you'll see in a lot of movies, they portray the bullying, the cliques, the girls that are super popular, and the sports guys. Yeah, that's a majority true. That is actually how the schools function in the United States, but the movies are a little bit dramatized. For an example, a lot of the bullying in the United States really isn't that physical. It's mostly like more of emotional, or people saying mean words, or something happening on like social media that they're bullying you. It's not so much like they take you in the bathroom and shove you in the toilet or something like those movies show. That really doesn't happen that much. It could happen, but it's not so common. Now, as far as like the groups of kids, right? Like the popular girls, the sports guys, the nerds. Yeah, that's very real. There are groups like that in US schools, and I've been to a lot of US schools, and pretty much all of them function in the same way. There's always the little groups of who gets along, and usually they have a common interest in mind, but Yes, that is actually very real. Now, the movies may also show you sometimes that the kids can be very disrespectful to teachers. Unfortunately, that is also accurate. Not always, but sometimes yes. Some of these kids can be very brutal on teachers, especially substitute teachers. I unfortunately remember we had a substitute teacher in my band class when I was a kid. I was in like middle school, so maybe like 13, 14 years old. And the kids were being so mean to him that he actually went in his office and started crying. So yeah, unfortunately that can be a real situation in the US, and it sucks. I really feel like some people, especially teachers, like they don't get paid that well in the United States. Like the least you can do is respect them and just be nice to them, but kids are so young, they don't actually understand the gravity of that situation also. So it's just a horrible situation all around. But yes, the movies do tend to be pretty accurate with what they show. They just maybe spice it up a little bit for Hollywood or make it a little more dramatic. But the underlying ideas of where those things are coming from are very real. I will say though, in my 18 years of school life, I never saw a food fight. So I don't know where those ideas come from for the movies, but no, nobody was ever throwing food in the cafeteria. There were kids fighting. There were a lot of kid fights, but throwing food was not something that I ever experienced, thankfully. So are American schools like the movies? Yeah, kind of. Yeah, kind of. It's just the movies are a little bit more dramatic. But there are some very dramatic differences between US schools and Chilean schools. And I'm probably missing some too, to be honest, because I don't have that much experience with the schools here in Chile. I just know what I'm told and what I've heard. But yeah, that is real. But yes, there are some things that are different between the United States schools and Chilean schools that make it a very distinct difference. But for me, it's not necessarily a good or a bad thing either way. I think they both have their pros and cons of each of them, and you just have to choose which one you want. I will say the most shocking difference for me as a Gringa living in Chile was how formal the schools are here in Chile, especially for the younger kids. How the younger kids always wear uniforms, how they always have to be very formal and proper and respectful with their teachers. Again, I don't think it's a bad thing, but it was just a very dramatic difference that I noticed from the very beginning. But you tell me down in the comments below, what is something in this video that really surprised you? Maybe it's about how American schools are run, or maybe it's about Chilean schools. I would love to hear your thoughts down below. Of course, thank you as always for subscribing, supporting my channel, hitting that like button, leaving comments. That all works in my favor and helps me so much to be so successful over here, and I do appreciate each and every one of you so much. I read every one of your comments and I truly enjoy talking to you. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button down below to continue to support my channel and watch me grow. I would love to do this journey with you, so if you haven't, join me in this journey and we can do it together. Thank you so much for watching this video all the way through, and if you made it this far, drop a blue heart emoji down there so I can see who's the real MVPs and who's actually watching all the way through. I'm watching out for those blue hearts. Let me know down below. But yeah, I will see you guys in the next video. Thanks so much for watching, and thank you for subscribing. Ciao.
Okay, let's go.